In 2020, over 5 million homes are forecasted to be sold across the United States. The number one question with buyers and sellers, how's the market? There's a lot of different ways to evaluate a market. And in this video, I'm going to dive deep into the details and demonstrate four major indicators that we use to be able to answer that question. Plus, I'm going to provide a bonus utilizing one of those indicators in negotiation strategies. We're talking about becoming a savvy buyer and a seller here on Moving AZ Homes. John Winter with Moving AZ Homes channel here on YouTube. I want to send a special thank you, shout out to those in the subscriber nations. Thank you again for spending the time and taking that out of your day to be a part with it. And if you're not a part of the community yet, just hit that little red subscriber button down there. It's free and you'll never miss an episode. The market, it can always be crazy. It goes up and down. What we'll do is we take snapshots, and normally they're done in 1 month increments. And in that, we can utilize that to be able to see trends. And that's the whole thing. The charts, yeah, they show the numbers. Let me tell the story. Let me help you be able to tell that story. Here in Phoenix, and that's where I'm at, been an agent for 25 plus years and been tracking these numbers for eons and being able to help clients make that determination or to be able to answer that question. How's the market? The detailed charts that I'm going to be demonstrating, they run either a 4-year or 5-year window, usually helps that way. But these are the numbers that came in from January of 2020. So what happens is the charts, a lot of the times, the numbers will, they'll pick up a month and drop off a month. So it's kind of like a moving average. I mean, it's a continued snapshot. And what are the trends and how are we going to handle with those trends and looking at that. The four indicators that we look at are supply, which is the listings, the active listings, the demands, that would be the solds, and then we're going to compare those two. That's math. I'm a math guy. I'll tell you the story. Don't worry about calculating that. And then the fourth one is we'll do another comparison, the sold price, and compare it to the list price. Here in Phoenix, the last 5-6 years, we've had a really unusual market because our supply has just been on the decline. January 2020 was no different. And we saw the inventories drop down again, ever so slightly. It dropped though. A little over 1%, it dropped. And that's what's making it difficult because buyers just aren't getting the choices. We've got over a 50% drop in that 6-year window. That makes it tough. And so when you start to think of changing markets, we see it go up and down and the charts can demonstrate that, but it's the overall picture. And that's why I like to use like a 5-year window and that rolling average. It gives us a good picture in time. In this one right here, we see that picture in time. You can see the blips going up and down over time, but it's still overall a drop. December dropped, January dropped. The second indicator is the demand. For the real estate world, that's the solds. And it's ironic. This chart looks like a heart graph going up and down, like a heartbeat. And that flows with markets, peak time frames and not. That's a whole different for negotiation strategies, but this is a way to be able to look. But for us here in the Phoenix metropolitan area, same story, opposite though, from the supply. The demands were low, 4,000, a little bit above. And now we're pushing a little over, the 6,000. I'm just under that 6,000 mark. It's about 5,400 right now. And so, but we did see it drop in January, kind of not unusual because January is a slow month. Most people, coming out of the new year, coming out of the holidays, if that's what people partake in, and we normally see that slow down in January. The story, though, is even with our January going down, it's still higher than it has ever been, which means the demands have been on the rise for a number of years, depleting those inventories. And that comparison makes it more difficult for the buyer side. Great for sellers, though, because the sellers, this tells us that they're getting prices and being able to look at the pricing. The third indicator is comparing the supply to the demand. Now, layman's term for us, we talk months of inventory. Months of inventory is a calculation, and this calculation is really just, it's things of a fraction. The numerator, you have the active listings, that would be the supply, and the numerator on the bottom of the fraction is the solds, that's the demands. Divide them in and you get one number. And the number that we always look for, as a good healthy market somewhere, is normally about, between a 4 and a 6 number. So we want to see 4 to 6. For Phoenix, hasn't been that way for years. With all these numbers and being able to talk the Phoenix metropolitan area, those of you that aren't in the Phoenix metropolitan, yeah, these aren't your numbers, but the same indicators will still give you the same picture. And being able to utilize that to answer that question, you find yourself a great professional realtor in your area. I've got a lot of agents that I know around the country because I've been doing this and analyzing it and doing a lot of speaking and training over the years. So looking at these numbers, especially, again, for us in the Phoenix metropolitan, we see in some things taking place that's really good for sellers, tough for the buyers. And, looking at the story here, we've been in the seller's market for years. We haven't been in a buyer's market. It means that you haven't gone over 6 months of inventory or that ratio of 6. It hasn't been broken in a long time. Still sellers. So the question would come in is what's the severity of it? A year ago, we were pushing a little over that 3.2, 3.3 mark. And in January, 1.7, it's still low, which means we're getting closer to the 0. That's a really strong buyer's market, which means multiple offers. The closer we get to 0, the more offers a seller is going to get because of no supply, no inventories. So we want to make sure we're able to look at the picture and help in the strategy, how to discuss those and utilize them to an advantage, whether it's buying or selling a piece of property. Over this last year, it still has dropped, and that's because of the high demand aspect in that ratio. The fourth one, it's going to be heavy for the negotiation strategy, but the fourth strategy is really going to look at the difference from what we list at a house, active inventories, versus what has sold and what's taking place between that. When the supply and demand changes and supply is going down, demands are going up, we see the market changing. And as it gets closer and closer, we really start to see the sellers getting more and more closer to their list price. And that's why somebody says, well, I got a 98%, doing good. Doesn't mean that everybody's going to get these average numbers. Now, we can track these because do these ratios track with each other? And 99% of the time, they track. And it gives us a good solidification of what has taken place, and are we in a buyer's market or are we in a seller's market? And that's what we're seeing taking place. The fourth ratio or indicator that we talk to is that, and because we're in such a heavy seller's market, and we know that we're in a heavy seller's market, For example, you got that list price by 50, you get a sold buyer that says, yes, I want to buy a house, but this is all I'm going to pay. That's a 98% difference. And then say we can track that on an average. And we can track these things by price points. We can track these things in ranges. We can track it by neighborhoods. We can track it by zip codes. There's so many different ways. This just be the overall number, but it really does give a good indication how's the market. And this is where the negotiation comes to play, because having those different numbers like this one, we see January, it jumped up to 98.5. We're almost at a 98.6. It moved up because of the heavy demand we had in December and the inventory. So it'll be curious to see what takes place here now in February, because a lot of times in February we start to see this really start to increase. And is it going to continue to increase? So we'll see. Stay tuned and be able to go into that. When you think of the 4 indicators, being able to answer that question, how's that market? Your supply, your demand, looking at the ratio between the supply and demand, we call it months of inventory, and then going into that negotiation, trying to buy and to sell. This is really what makes a seller or buyer kind of savvy into the market, and being able to demonstrate the information. If you've enjoyed it, please just hit that little red button, subscribe. I'm going to do this on every single month because I've been doing this for years and be able to give it. Plus, as a bonus, you do see in the link below, you can get a free details of all the charts I just gave to you and be able to see what those details are. Because if you're like me, I like to do that, and that's fine. I'm more than happy to share that with you. And enjoy. And until the next session, have a great day.